Sollen wir mal? Does research play an important part in the curriculum?
I consider myself a psycholinguist, so for me the answer would be no, because this is an institute for theoretical linguistics, and the research part in this part of linguistics is really big. But
yeah. So for me the answer would definitely be yes.
Yeah.
So to my mind that's one of the biggest things that's great about the department is that there's a ton of research that's an important part of the MA program. There's talks basically every week and conferences and workshops, and the students are encouraged to do their own research, and that research is taken very seriously in the sense that if you do it, then someone will treat it as if you're a grown-up linguist doing grown-up research. In terms of how tightly it fits within the curriculum and within the actual courses, I think that differs a lot depending on which courses you take. Because people are very flexible in what courses they take. So Dana and me, for example, I think this is the second semester in a row where we don't have any classes together because we constantly take opposite things. But in many classes, I would say it's considered important that people engage with the current research and also start doing their own research.
Because of the talks, you get to know a lot of real famous linguists.
Famous linguists. Yes, no, that's true. Yes, yeah.
You get to know their work and. Are there any misconceptions about a program?
So I would say that depends on what your conceptions of the program are. If you think that it's a program that's very much about getting a foundation in theoretical linguistics to become a linguist, then you have the right conception of the program. And I guess one thing that does happen a lot is that people think that linguistics is about learning lots of languages, and that is not true. So that would be a misconception. The only language you really have to know in this program is English, because the program is in English. That's why we're doing this in English, and that's also all of the classes are in English, and it's a very international group of students, so many of them don't speak German. But in terms of learning lots of languages, that's not what we do. You could learn, for example, a lot about vowel harmony in one language that is spoken in North Africa, and then the next day you would have forgotten all about it and you would move on to learn about the case system of a language that's spoken in the Amazon, and very likely wouldn't know a lot about the language apart from the thing that you're looking at to determine something about the rules of the grammar.
Yeah, exactly. And then related misconception is that you don't have to also not learn a specific language that you choose. Yeah. You don't have to, you can of course, but linguistics is more about analyzing patterns and comparing them to each other in different languages or in one language that you choose.
And I would say that's even more true in the MA program than in the BA program, because in the MA program you really sort of reach that level of abstraction where the specific things that you would learn if you were to learn how to speak a language are not at the level of, so you're not trying to learn words, for example. You're trying to really learn about the grammatical structure of a language. How important is prior knowledge of linguistics?
For me personally, it helped me a lot that I did my bachelor's here at the University of Leipzig, because I already knew how the professors work, I knew what these studies are about, I knew how the research in this university works. It made things a lot easier for me, but this is of course nothing that you have to have. I think having some knowledge in linguistics helps a lot if you know how linguistics in general works, and if you have done something in linguistics at some point in your life. but yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So it is, I mean, it is an advanced program, it's a master's program, and it helps if you have done linguistics before. I completely agree with that. Although I guess it's also worth mentioning that there is a module that you can take in the very beginning of your studies here, which is sort of a foundational module that helps bring all of these people that come from very different places, where the conception of how good linguistics should look like is also very different sometimes. It brings them all together and teaches certain basics in phonology and morphology and syntax and semantics, so that at the end of this foundational block at the beginning of your studies, everyone is sort of supposed to have the same starting point to then go on and do more advanced things. And you don't have to take this class. So another thing about the program is that you're very free to choose which modules you want to take. And this is one of the ones that, in case you're already coming in with the kind of background that you need to take the other classes, for example, because you did your BA here, but also if you did it somewhere else where it just happens to be a similar but different program, then you can also just skip that and move right on to the things that are most interesting to you.
I did that module, for example, even though I studied my bachelor here, and it helped me a lot just to refresh knowledge. But another thing that's also worth mentioning, if you are lacking knowledge, you can also just sit into a bachelor's courses and refresh the knowledge or acquire knowledge that you don't have and use that.
Yeah, several people in our cohort helped them a lot as well.
How demanding is the master's program?
Right, how demanding is it? So I would say it's exactly as demanding as you want it to be. It depends. I think if you just are looking to get an MA in linguistics for some reason, and you just want to do the minimum amount of stuff that you have to do to get an MA program or to get an MA, then that is certainly doable. But I think the real challenge comes in when you want to do more than that, and you want to learn how to do research independently. And then it is a very demanding program in the sense that you have all of these opportunities here to make that happen. But of course that is where a lot of the work comes in, where you really have to read a lot and go to the talks and presentations that are happening here almost every week. And start to work on your own projects and develop things, ideas that you maybe started just for a term paper, and develop them into a bigger project that you could be carrying onto your PhD studies, for example, if that's something that you want to do. There's MA students here that work in projects together with, for example, PhD students, or like Dana work at linguistics institutes outside of the university to get started on their own research.
I often also include that into the research that I am doing at this institute.
And of course then it gets very demanding. It gets to the point where it takes away your sleep.
But I mean, that's fair, right? It's a master's program, it's not a bachelor. It has to be more demanding than stuff that you did before. So I think that's about right.
Last question. What do you like most about the program?
Okay, to be honest, the small number of students, probably, because you have a really good connection between the students, and also a really nice and good connection to the lecturers. It's very easy to schedule meetings. For example, if you're writing a thesis with someone and everyone knows each other, which is also a nice thing. But also the groups that you have your seminars in are really small, and that makes learning a lot easier than in a group of, for example, 100 of people. You can have really productive discussions, which is a really great thing, and everyone in this institute is really good at discussing. and you can ask a lot of questions, and people have time to talk to you about your problems, to answer your questions. Yeah.
It's very interesting. So I agree with that to some extent. It's true that it's a small department, but in a sense I always feel like it's the opposite in a way. So my favorite thing about the program, I think, is that it's situated at this department where, if you want to, can feel like you're at the absolute center of the linguistics universe. So it's like, because there's just so many things going on here, and the MA program is so well integrated into the department that you have all of these chances to collaborate with the PhD students and with the professors and with the postdocs, with the BA students, actually, with some very engaged and interested BA students as well. And because there's so many events and invited speakers and guest lecturers, even though it's a very small department, it often feels like there's always something going on, and it's a very lively environment. It's an exciting environment, I would say, and I think that's my favorite part, that it always feels tightly knit, as Dana said, but at the same time also very international and open, and I think that's great.
I just realized that we are really different personalities, and we studied completely different in this master program.
Yeah, and I think that's another part though about the program, right? It's great for a variety of different people, I think, and you can choose your own path here.
You can adjust the program to your personality. So
I think so
that's really great. Yeah.